everyone, welcome to this session on Mental Health Minutes, an extension of Keeley Life, where we explore the H in HEAL regarding mental wellness. I'm here with Gina Berkmeyer, licensed professional counselor, and this Mental Health Minute is on giving and receiving gratitude and explore ways on how it actually can rewire your brain. So welcome, Gina.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so glad to have you back on. And so let's just jump right in. Can you explain to us what gratitude is and more importantly, what it isn't?
Sure. So, gratitude, the way we're going to look at gratitude today, I think people can tend to look at this as something that is just spiritual. But it really is a lot more than that. It's actually quite scientific and quite holistic. So, for our purposes today, as we talk about a practice of gratitude and what the benefits of that can be, we're actually going to define gratitude as that ability to be thankful, which is kind of an internal thing, right? But then also that ability to express appreciation, which is external. So the internal and the external of that, and to be doing that on a consistent basis. So that's how we're going to define gratitude today. And what gratitude is not, which I think is equally important when we're talking about instilling gratitude practice in our lifestyle, we want to understand what it isn't. And it isn't something that I refer to as the at least principle, right? So this isn't a way to deny what we're struggling with. This isn't a way to say, we can still say, hey, this is really hard. This thing I'm going through, it's really hard. It's really scary. It's really painful. This isn't meant to be a band-aid. It's actually meant to just kind of help give us some balance and some health in the midst of some things that could be a struggle. So it isn't like an at least it's not as bad as ... right? That's not what gratitude is.
Would you say that there's misconceptions also around gratitude? Like when I think of gratitude, it's almost like, you're trained to have your manners, right? So we say please and thank you. Should gratitude be something that's actually built into our language and that we practice it daily? Or is it something that sits on a shelf and we get it off and we use it in times like, in times of need?
That is an excellent question. So, gratitude really, once developed, is a way of life. It truly is a practice. It is something, and what's really cool about gratitude is the more you do it, the more it will come naturally. And we'll talk about some ways to kind of get ourselves into some creative modes of thinking about gratitude and practicing it as well.
Okay, well then let's jump in. What are different ways to show gratitude? Are there preferred ways? Are there ways you can start to develop the actual practice of it?
Yeah. So the research shows us that the most effective gratitude is consistent gratitude. So we can get creative about what that looks like. Some of the really cool research out there talks about how it affects us, of course, in relationship to our emotional well-being, but also our physical well-being. So the more parts of ourselves we can incorporate into our practice of gratitude, the better off we are. So it can be something as simple as I'll work with my clients often when people are struggling with anxiety or depression and they're in the thick of it. We'll go for some what I call low hanging fruit, which is basically you can say, I'm grateful for the air today. Or I'm grateful I had breakfast, or I'm so grateful for my coffee. Some of us might be more grateful for our coffee than others. And so we can start with things like that. It's a great place to start. It begins to get us in that habit. Ideally, it's really beneficial to begin to look at gratitude in terms of relationships and people, things that aren't dependent on something material, because what we know is that that actually enhances the experience of gratitude. It allows us to bring more regions of the brain into the practice. And what's really cool is there are a lot of hormones and chemicals in the brain that are released when we practice gratitude. And these are not only beneficial for things like depression and anxiety, but they're also beneficial for studies have shown that people in a regular practice of gratitude who suffer from chronic pain report a decrease in their symptoms of pain. They're self-reporting decreased symptoms of anxiety and depression. We see that these hormones that bathe the brain and the body, they're protective and they're healing to our entire system, to our nervous system, to our brain, to our body. It boosts our relationships, but it also boosts our immune system, which we're all looking for creative ways to do that right now. So it's really beneficial. The more we can bring more of our brain into the process, actually, the more we can experience it. So I would say gratitude isn't just a simple thank you. It's beyond that in terms of just, it can be simple things like pulling into a parking lot and realizing there's a really close spot at the door. Wow, bonus. Hey, thanks for giving me that. That was really cool. Just whatever creative ways you can begin to practice, I would say try to do that.
So gratitude is more than just a feeling. So you're saying there's actually scientific data behind it that can actually help in the whole well-being of
Right.
ourselves.
Right. So there's something called a functional MRI, which is kind of like an MRI, but rather than just looking at regions of the brain, we're looking at function of the regions of the brain. And what fMRIs show us is that people who practice gratitude regularly, first and foremost, it lights up the reward centers of our brain,
Mm-hmm.
which increases really positive, good feeling chemicals to the brain and the body. But also, the studies are showing us that people who practice gratitude regularly have a higher functioning hypothalamus, which is really important because that part of the brain actually assists us in managing stress, in managing our metabolism, and in managing our sleep. And we all know sleep is super important in terms of our overall health and well-being.
Right. So do you have some ways that you may share with us today on how we can start?
Yeah. So you want to do an exercise together? We could do that.
Sure, that'd be
Okay.
perfect.
All right. So let's start for everybody who's doing this with us. Hope if they have a piece of paper and pen. I don't know if you have a piece of paper and pen
Fine.
handy. Awesome. Okay. So take just a moment and kind of look around your surroundings, wherever you are right now. Just take a moment, look around, and see if you can just find one or two things that you're grateful for and write them down.
Got mine. That was easy.
Okay, awesome. Do you want to share them?
Sure, absolutely. So I am working from home today, as a lot of us are. And so I'm really thankful for my health and my children, but I'm also thankful for Keely for providing me the opportunity to still have a job and be employed, even through the landscape may look different.
That's awesome. So, okay, one of the things that we just did by writing it down is we actually brought in a mindfulness component.
And
You had to, yeah, and you're smiling. You had to be present in order to think about those things and to write them down. So that's kind of cool because you're bringing in that mindfulness component. But the other thing you're doing is you're instilling another region of the brain to write those things down and help solidify that practice. And we want to do this over and over again because what happens is we want to establish neural networks in the brain that are actually going to be dedicated to things like gratitude. And it's going to become, the more we do it, the easier it's going to be to recognize it and to just sort of act out of a place of gratitude rather than having this intentional shift that we need to make to get there. So let's try a second exercise. Ready?
Okay, ready.
Okay. So this one, you might need to close your eyes for a second, which is fine. So think of a person that you are grateful for, and then think of something specific. So for me, I can say today, right in this moment, I'm really grateful for April because she is making this so easy with her pleasant smile and her demeanor. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to do this with her. So take a moment, just close your eyes for just a second, picture that person, think about what it is that you're grateful for from that person. And then when you have it, open your eyes and write that down. Now, did you feel a shift from the initial gratitude to what you just did with regard to a person? Did it feel different?
It did.
What did you feel different? What was different?
It's instead of focusing on myself, right? When you focus on others and the blessing that comes with having that person in your life, I'm not for sure how to explain it, but it definitely is different. It provided a more happier feeling, if that's a way
Yeah.
to state it.
So it kind of was a calmer, happier.
Yeah.
Would that be appropriate to say?
That would be.
Okay. So what happens when we think of those people is we release a hormone called oxytocin. And oxytocin is some of the times that is the highest is when we're hugging someone we love, or we're playing with our children, or we're having touch with someone that we trust and we love. And we can get that feeling just by calling them up and thinking of something that just brings that warm attitude. And it kind of can almost make us a little teary. We just get so, like, our heart gets tender. And oxytocin is wonderful because it's actually the number one mitigator to cortisol. So it really brings our stress down and helps with anxiety and depression.
So these are things that we can do ourselves, that is not something we're actually putting into our body. We're creating it, which I think is so powerful.
Yes.
And would love ways to bring it into my daily practice. So do you have any ways that you actually utilize it daily?
Yeah. So I actually created a 30-day gratitude journal. And in this journal, it gives you a different experience every day of what gratitude might look like. Some is internal, some is external. Some of it might ask you to interact with nature, with music, with your surroundings, with smell, with taste, really incorporating all the regions of the brain.
Mhm.
And then it gives you a space to write about that experience. And the reason that I did this for 30 days, obviously we want to continue, but
Right.
30 days is about the amount of time that it takes for neurons to be born, mature, fire together, and then wire together. So making those neural networks that we talked about earlier, those pathways that would be specifically dedicated to forming this attitude of gratitude. So I'm going to send you that link. If you would like to share it with everybody at Keeley, I'm happy to give
Absolutely.
that away.
Absolutely. So it's almost gratitude 101, because it's given you tools, like we just talked about, different ways, preferred ways, and you start to actually live in it and experience what are the ways that work for the individual. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And the second
Absolutely.
piece of that that's really great with the 30-day is, again, you're pulling some mindfulness in. So if I'm
Right.
asking you to go out and check something out in nature, or taste something slowly and savor it, those kinds of things actually are also mindfulness practices, which we know also help us with anxiety and depression and just overall quality of life.
Well, that's great. Gina, do you have anything else to add?
I would say that when we practice this attitude of gratitude, it is something internal, yes, but the benefit to our relationships is just incredible. Across the board, all the research shows that this has really helped relationships to solidify, to improve, and we just really look at one another with so much more compassion and grace and gratitude. And so I think it's a benefit. It's kind of a win-win. It's one of those practices that really sets a ripple effect.
No, that's great. And we are in the people business, right? So it's all about growing and harvesting those relationships as a Keelian, but you can take that further into every relationship.
Yes.
So that is awesome, Gina. Well, I just want to add, this is our mental health minutes. Our next one's going to be on mindfulness, which I think you just touched base on. So that is great, the correlation between the two. But also, we're going to provide tactics on how to manage that stress. And we will have a guest speaker, and Gina will actually tee her or him up. We can't give anything away. For our next session. So thanks again, Gina. Really appreciate your insight and just showing how there is a correlation between the scientific, ness behind it, but also how it actually can impact us both personally too. So
My pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
thanks so much. We'll talk soon.